In response to taxpayer protests, several states have tried to put a lid on property taxes, but the taxes keep right on going up. I'll be back to tell you why. The property tax is the most unpopular tax in America. In a recent national survey to determine which tax people consider the most unfair, property tax scored 2-1 over federal income tax and 3-1 over state sales tax. 45% of those surveyed consider property tax the most unfair. Only 7% thought it the fairest. Time was when the property tax was the only one American citizens had to pay, and right up to World War II it produced more revenue than any other tax. Now it ranks fourth, behind taxes on personal income, Social Security, and sales, and only slightly ahead of the corporate income tax. Why is the property tax so unpopular when other newer taxes are taking more of our earnings? One reason is that property tax buys important, highly visible, and local public services, schools, fire and police protection, and parks, and we're more likely to criticize what we can see and hope to influence. Another reason is that the property tax is locally administered. We're more likely to hold the strongest opinions about things closest to us, and no one likes taxes. But a third reason, crucial to the current situation, is that the property tax has become not just a double, but a triple tax. Every dollar of our earnings used to buy a home is taxed 3 times. Once as personal income, once to pay the property tax rate, and once to meet the increased property tax assessments resulting from inflation. Now let's take them one at a time. The homeowner's favorite tax deduction is the interest he pays on his mortgage. Yet this deduction does not apply to the part of his income with which he actually buys the home. Every dollar he pays against the principal, that is, every dollar by which he increases his ownership, has already been fully taxed as normal income. Then he is taxed to pay the property tax rate, which ranges from 2 to 4% of the value of the home, or about 5 to 10% of the homeowner's income after he has paid income taxes. Finally, whenever the federal government adds to the national money supply, it produces inflation, which raises prices and hits the homeowner as a higher property assessment and therefore a higher property tax. The deadly scissoring effect of higher tax rates and inflationary assessments often drives homeowners on fixed incomes to a despairing choice. Will they keep their homes or will they eat? What's more, even wage earners can't gain a clear advantage by earning more, since the higher income tax rates that go with higher earnings offset any gains on inflation. Next time, I'll tell you what we must do to relieve the homeowner of triple taxation. This is Ronald Reagan. Thanks for listening. Higher property taxes are an inevitable result of inflation, because inflation itself is simply another tax. I'll be right back. It may seem uncharacteristic for me to sympathize even a little bit with property tax assessors. I regard all tax collectors as a necessary evil, and I'm convinced they would be less evil if they were less necessary. However, I have some sympathy with local tax assessors, for these days they're almost as much victims as they are villains. When homeowners protest against outrageous increases in assessed values, and when property tax assessors try to justify such increases in relation to market values, I have to admit both sides have a point. But the increases are usually both technically justified and practically outrageous, and I'm astonished that neither side of the argument tries to find the reason for this paradox. It isn't hard to find. It's called inflation, and it works out of Washington, D.C. Inflation occurs when the growth of the nation's money supply outstrips the growth in the nation's productivity. The federal government controls the nation's money supply and is therefore the primary source of inflation. Inflation raises prices because more money is available, but more goods and services and homes are not. Thus, property market values rise, and property tax assessors are technically justified in raising assessments. But the homeowner is equally justified in thinking the raise is outrageous, because he's caught in an unmerciful governmental triple squeeze. Higher assessments mean higher taxes at a time when all other prices are climbing because of inflation. Tax increases from higher assessments are often compounded by higher property tax rates imposed so that local government also can pay the inflated costs of goods and services. Higher wages don't help, because the higher the income, the greater the percentage of it taken by income tax. And of course, the homeowner trying to live on a fixed retirement income is squeezed most unmercifully, since he has no defense at all. against inflation. In truth, inflation is simply another tax imposed by Washington in the name of easy money, a tax which makes the existing property tax structure unbearable. But before we throw out the property tax, the one tax over which we can at least exercise some local control, let's try an alternative. Let's put the pressure on the bureaucrats and legislators in Washington to end the needless hidden tax of inflation. Only they can do it. This is Ronald Reagan. Thanks for listening.